it seems like in SaaS, the demo on the first call is happening no matter what. Is that true? Maybe
Mm,
not on the
I
outbound.
think it's happening more often, but I think there are some sales motion. Like I don't demo on our first call, but it also aligns with what the buyer wants, right? I'm not like trying to hold it back or anything.
Right. Because like the old school folks from my generation, like, oh no, you don't demo until you've put them through like, Guantanamo Bay type interrogation, right? And last time you had some really good tips, which is how you incorporate both.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, so for my 20 something inside sales reps in a more of a velocity motion, even in a mid market motion, they got to show product out of the gate.
Hmm.
Is that, I mean, do
I
we,
think so.
I mean,
I
we're
think
all,
that's true.
yeah.
At least like a team
Okay.
of it.
Right, right, absolutely. So if I were going to, and I'm making you repeat from the last show, but it was so powerful because this is still really important to incorporate the learnings that we need to have in order to be successful down the line in the sales process in a scenario where we're getting pushed to bring product forward and the ability to create value out of that. What are your like? What do you see in the best reps doing in that scenario, and like, what can we learn from it?
I think there's a handful of things. I think that entire situation needs to start with expectation setting, right? High velocity buyer comes to you. The first thing out of your mouth during that discovery call is acknowledging the fact that they probably want to see the product, right? So, like, if I'm setting an agenda, it's like, looks like you requested a demo on our website. I want to make sure you walk out of this meeting informed on our product more so than you walked in. And so we'll definitely reserve some time to go over some of it. If it's okay with you, though, I would like to make that part of our agenda really crisp for your situation. And so maybe we spend the first 10 or 15 minutes going over what motivated you to reach out to begin with. And then I can make sure I'm informing you on the right pieces of what we do. Does that sound fair? And most buyers are going to agree with it because you're calling it out at the beginning. You're saying, we'll get to that. And most reps don't do that. They just launch into discovery. They might even intend to show a demo later, but because they never give the buyer the expectation that I'm going to show you something, the buyer can't read their mind. They're just getting asked all these questions. And like the third question in, they go, dude, like I requested
Right.
a demo. Can you just show me
Yeah.
your product? And it creates all this unnecessary friction that you could get ahead of just by framing the call in the right way and setting the right expectations.
See, I knew you were going to make my day. That's great. Isn't it funny how with all the, like how, that is very specific and in many ways tactical, right? It is this specific piece of a call, but it's strategic in that it will move
Mhm.
needles
Yeah, yeah.
for these guys, like big ones. Yeah. I mean,
Because the
it's
alternative
incredible.
is you don't do it. You ask two questions. The buyer's like, go F yourself, just show me your product. And now you're just
Right.
throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. And they go dark on you and the
Yeah.
deal's dead. And you have no
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, for sure. But like Matt, you like to see the product on the first call, right? As a buyer or no?
I think it's rare that I haven't seen a product before I've gotten on a first call.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, just in this day and age with the technology, with how much people put product out in front, I mean, it's unlikely that you can't just get on YouTube and like watch a demo of whatever product you're thinking about before you even get on the call. So like what you want is like, hey, I have a tech stack that looks like this. Show me how it all integrates, I guess. And like, then show me whatever I didn't see on that call. But it's interesting because I was a part of a couple companies that just had awesome sales culture, right? Both Marketo and Tibco were just awesome at it. And they never, and I look, I understand it was a long time ago, but like they never ever did a demo on a first call. And the thing that I will say is they did a really good job of setting the stage the way Chris is sort of unfurled here, which is like, hey, like I'm going to tell you what's going to happen on this call. So like, I don't just like start peppering you with questions and immediately turn you off. And they made people understand the value of why they weren't seeing a demo on the first call. So were there people who are
Totally.
like, fuck off, show me the product? Yeah, there were, but that's like less than 1% of the interactions that those sales teams had with their prospects because they did such a good job of sort of laying out what that process would look like. And that's something that I really don't see out in market right now is, it's like still operating as a flywheel, even when I know it's not a flywheel, right? Like, cause I know what the market conditions are, but you show up and like in some cases, the AEs are like taking the approach like, hey man, I got like 30 other people that are lining up to buy this thing. So like, I got to crank through this really fast. You've got to answer some questions for me or whatever. And it's just kind of like, oh man, like that process just sucks.
Well, see, that you made a good point, which is like if you're going to do a pure discovery call and not show any product, then you need to run that call and even name the call in a way that's buyer beneficial, not seller oriented, right? In fact, you probably don't even want to call it a discovery call. So like our first two steps in our sales process at P Club is our first call is what we call a skill analysis discovery call, right? Like we're looking for skill gaps. And then the second call is content mapping, where we walk them through our platform and show them what specific learning programs would attack those skill gaps. And our buyers actually, like I've never gotten this like discovery fatigue because our buyers value going through that skill analysis with us because they exit that call regularly sharing how we helped them crystallize their thinking on like what skill gaps they need to attack in their organization. And we just put that out in the first call, right? Like when we're setting it up, we say usually what we do from here is we try to get clear on two things. Number one is what are the various skill gaps that you're seeing? And I'm happy to share some of the skill gaps we see in the market. And then number two, if we solve those skill gaps, what business outcome would be positively affected so that we know we're building a business case in advance. What that helps us do is in the second call, we can then walk you through in detail how we would attack the skill gaps that we align on in this call. And I've never had any pushback, but it's because I made it about them and their benefit, not, hey, I have to answer my BANT questions because I have a pipeline review on Monday. And so you're not getting out of this thing alive, baby.
Yeah, that, by the way, there, one of the things that that we tried to do at Topo was separate discovery from qualification because there was way too, you brought up BANT, there was way too much intermingling there. So we said, look, here's how we're going to talk about things. This BANT is whether you should do work on the deal. I'm sorry, qualification is whether you should work on the deal. Discovery is how you will win the deal. Now, I know that's very vendor centric, but just go with it because, oftentimes that experience also gets broken, which is that discovery is bantermetic. And that actually is also a turnoff, right? Where like the reality is in an analysis, a skill analysis, or whatever that might be, is like we're talking about what's happening in their business and understanding. In your case, it's a gap analysis. Actually, I guess in most cases, a gap analysis, or you could say like a use case and try to figure out what they're trying to solve or whatever that might be. I think that's really important. I would just say this, like, if I take what Chris said before, like we're trying to help the buyer. We want to facilitate the journey they want. In my opinion, most buyers today want to see product out of the gate. And it's not their fault. It's our fault as the vendors. We've made the world so cloudy on what's what and who's who. There's this part of their overcoming their massive indecision is to feel comfortable along the way. And it just proves that the UX, and what you're showing out of the gate makes a huge difference. So that's why I like what you're talking about, which is in some cases, look, that's what the buyer wants and expects. In some cases, it's not. I once ran a panel with some Fortune 500 IT folks, and they just said, no, you have to do discovery, man. You will waste my time if you don't. I actually want you to. Because I have been pitched products that have nothing to do with my life, and I need that time back. So I think it depends, right?
Well, you also don't know what you don't know as a buyer sometimes. And like I've been in that experience where I'm like, I kind of want you asking me a few questions to make sure this even applies to like what I'm trying to accomplish instead of like running me through something. The other thing you said, which is really insightful, it reminded me of a lesson that I learned from one of our course authors. His name's Brett Baldwin. He teaches a course on how to access power. And he said, you can't ask about process until you first created value, meaning like their buying process. right? Like if you start a discovery call and you're like, so who's going to be, involved in this decision and where's funding going to come? And you're leading with that before you've had like the hefty business conversation about like what's going on in your world, what's the negative impact and like helping them solve it. You have that conversation first. Hopefully you can get some sort of glimpse as to whether they're qualified before the meeting, just like online. And then once you've started to give them value and showed them how like you can solve the problem, then like you have every right to start asking some of those questions, like what steps are you going to need to take from here? But most salespeople start with those, and it's torture because it's like, dude, I don't even know if I want to pursue this. I'm just trying to flesh out my problem and whether or not you can solve it.
Yeah. Love it. Now, Matt, just so you know, Chris, in the background while you're talking, you said I said something really insightful. My hope was that Matt would go to the clapper on that, and he denied
it's not
it.
You clapped for yourself, though, so it's just as good.
It's not clapping.
Fair.